There's no shortage of motorized sliders in the market, but one of my biggest issues has always been the setup time and the reliability. I can't count the number of shoots where I've brought my motorized slider but haven't actually used it because I've always felt the pressure of the timing of the shoot, whether it's commercial, documentary, or narrative. Now, what if there was a faster way? What if you didn't need an app to control it? You're not worried about Bluetooth connection. And what if you don't even need to wait for it to calibrate itself from left to right? What if you could just turn it on and start using it? Well, that's what the Zeapon AXIS had allowed me to do. This is Dave, and today we're taking a look at the Zeapon AXIS Pro. This is a 3-way motorized camera slider. And this is the spoiler first. This is the fastest to set up 3-way motorized camera slider I've ever used, making it the slider I've actually brought with me and used on commercial and documentary shoots, making smooth shots possible even under tight deadlines. But before we get to the review, full disclosure, I was sent this product without charge, but without strings attached too. So this isn't a review, but I'll be sharing my top tips for using any slider, as well as 3 of the best things I like about this and 3 things that I think they can improve on. As always, you'll find the links and updates in the description below. Before we get into the specifics of the Zeapon slider, I'm going to give you 2 tips that will help you with any of your slider movements, regardless of brand. If you're finding yourself wrestling with your tripod or your slider where it's always tipping at the ends of its travel, then I'm of the unpopular opinion that your tripod or your legs are too light. I'm all for saving weight whenever I'm traveling, but a slider stand is not a place where you want to save weight. One tripod system that I trust and will use with a slider is the Sockler Flowtech 75 legs, but those are quite expensive. Another option that I use and love is the Kupo slider stand. This thing can hold up to 80 pounds and it has been rock solid even with my 100mm Axis from Zeapon. And Zeapon does include these arms that you can add more stability, but I find that's not necessary when you have a nice solid base. On this particular Kupo stand, I have the optional wheels as well, which adds even more mass to the bottom, preventing tipping and giving me a super stable platform for my slider. The second tip to help with your slides is to turn off in-camera stabilization. And why, Dave, would you ever want to do this? I usually have this on all the time, even when it's on sticks. Well, because of the motion and because at the end of the travel, it'll stop and then go the other opposite way, I find that sometimes the stabilizer in the camera will try to fight that and give you a little jerky movement at the end of each throw. Turning that off will give you hopefully better slides, and even if you have a little bit of jankiness, I find that the software to help you stabilize can work with that a lot better than if the in-camera stabilization was adding some extra jerks. Let's get back to talking about the Zeapon AXIS. The difference between the regular AXIS and the Pro models is that the Pro models come with an extra tilt motor that allows you to add that extra third element of movement that is very precise and controllable. Zeapon's website has great details on all the specifications of the slider, and there's good tutorials out there already that tell you how to set this up. So we're not going to get into the weeds. I'm going to tell you the overview of what makes this one of the best sliders on the market for 2024 and why it's considered my favorite for commercial and documentary use. The design and build quality. Here's the Cole's Notes version. It's excellent. They've got a lot of nice little details, including graded markings across the carbon fiber rails. They also have a whole bunch of mounting points underneath for 1/4 inch and 3/8 inch threading. They've got the best implementation of leveling legs that I've ever seen, with a very positive locking button that's very easy to adjust. And overall, it just inspires confidence. Now, the top 3 things that sets the Zeapon AXIS apart from everything else that I've tried, including Edelkrone, Syrup, Axum Top Brake, everything, is that they've decided to integrate the pan head into the slider. That means this is the fastest to set up and use slider that I've ever used, and that's saying something. All you need to do is add a battery, add a camera, and you don't even need to calibrate from left to right. You can get started, program your A/B endpoints, and get to work. This can't be understated enough, because often if I'm using my Edelkrone, it's so frustrating because I have Bluetooth issues or the app doesn't connect because it's waiting for a firmware update. I haven't had any problems like that at all. The second thing is that they have on-unit controls for all the movements for setting A and B points. That means I don't have to rely on my phone, which I'm also using as a monitor, which I'm also using to control my lights, to actually control my slider. Everything can be done from the back of the unit. The app does give you some extra niceties, like instead of just an A and B point, you can program up to 6 different waypoints. You can also do time lapse and things like that. But for me, 99% of the time, all I need is to program an A and B point, and I'm a happy camper. The third thing that sets the Zeapon apart, it goes again with speed and reliability of use, is the fact that you can set a manual mode where I can just push the slider to position A and then move physically the pan with my hand into A position, press A, move it to B position, and then lock it in place, and I manually set instead of having to wait for this. This is at 100% speed right now, and as you can see, it's pretty much average for the speed, a little bit probably quieter than other motors that I've used, but it's not exactly a speed demon compared to manually pushing this guy around. So I do love setting it up that way. So let's take a look at this in use. So when you turn the head unit on, also turn on the power of the tilt motor if you have the Pro model with the extra tilt. And the power button will also be the control for the speed of the tilt. So I'm going to turn that to slow because I find that that's the easiest for me to control the tilt. Now this one will ask you, do you want to connect to the connected device? That means it already was previously connected to the tilt, and so you just press OK, and it'll reconnect to the tilt without you having to tell it to, which is really nice. Here we go. And it says it's connected. Okay, perfect. The easiest way that I found to set A and B points is just press and hold this hand button, and then it goes into manual mode. And from here, I can just push the slider and turn the pan anywhere I want. Now, if you want to change the tilt, you still need to use the buttons up top on the tilt arm, which is not very intuitive, but then you just press A and it's recorded that position. I'm going to go to B position here, and I'm going to change my pan. I'm going to go up here for the tilt, and then I'm going to press my B. If you want to loop it, press the loop button, press OK, and I'm programmed and I'm moving. On the right here, you do have a dial for the speed control. So if you want that faster or slower, this is at 100%, then you can change that before you start your slide, but that's as easy and fast as it gets. When it's time to reprogram different A and B points, just press the OK to stop it, press the menu button, and then from here, it'll ask you delete A and B points, OK, OK, and then back, and you just repeat the process. Again, press and hold the hand, move to A point, move your pan if you want, press A, move to the B point, turn your pan if you want, press B, press loop, press play, and Bob's your uncle. Nothing's perfect, and there's a couple things that I'd like to see Zeapon improve on. One thing is that there's no way for me to know if my camera is balanced on my tilt arm. And you won't know until you try to move the tilt and maybe it won't move because your camera is so unbalanced. It'd be nice if it had a way to disengage the motor, then I could bounce my camera and then turn the motor back on to do my tilts. It's not really a deal breaker, but definitely something that I could see an improvement on. The second thing is, if you notice, the ease and out points at the end of every travel are quite quick, and there's no pause at the end. It just hits the wall and then goes the other way. I wish that we could change the ease in and out speed on the actual panning head. And that would be really nice if I'm doing some interviews where I wanted a really smooth transition and maybe even a pause at the end and then starting moving the other direction. So more programmability, better. The last thing I would love for them to see, it's pretty nitpicky, but their carrying bag is awesome in the fact that it carries the entire case. It's longer than you might think because it doesn't need to be built out. But I wish that they'd add a mesh section to the top of the lid so that I could stash batteries as well as manuals and cables. So even though there's no perfect slider, I find that the Zeapon's speed of setup, reliability, and smoothness allows me to call this my main slider for 2024. So that's it for this review, but before I let you go, I do have a thought of the day, and the thought of the day is this: be kind to everyone. Simple words I try to live by, but thanks for watching. I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments, but if you love stuff like this, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. God bless.